Well, we are continuing in the Sermon on the Mount. This week, we are in the third sermon in the Sermon on the Mount, and I just wanted to give us a chance to review. Is the sky falling, Kathy?
There's a fire engine outside, and I'm just making sure my elderly neighbor's okay.
No, and that your house
I'm
is.
listening. I'm listening. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't know
no,
who's.
I knew something had to be pulling you away. Yeah,
Yeah.
engines are important to know about. It's a pretty chair carving, by the way.
It really is.
Let us all pray for those firefighters and give thanks for them. Ask the Lord
Amen to that.
to keep them safe. Yeah. People who run towards the danger. So we've compared Jesus' Sermon on the Mount to what kind of speech that we hear in this country. An inaugural address, exactly.
Very different.
Right,
Everybody,
right.
picture.
right, exactly. Just that Jesus is obviously not a temporal power of which he speaks, right, or kingdom, right? It's the kingdom of
Heaven.
Right, very good, right. If we were in any other gospel, it would be the kingdom of
That earth.
God,
Oh,
right? Kingdom of God. If we were in any of the other gospels, but Matthew distinctively says the kingdom of heaven. And there's one aspect that that we expect from those inaugural addresses that Jesus does not do. What does Jesus not include?
Well, it's the tone or the rhetoric of the administration. He doesn't do that. He doesn't tell you, um, like talking about like unite the country.
Right, exactly.
That's not what he does.
Exactly. There's no, we're all in this together. Let's all put our differences aside and pull together. Right? None of that. None of that. In fact, quite the opposite. There's going to be language from him that is quite divisive, right? So very good, Kathy. Um, and last week, Jesus repeatedly stressed an important aspect of these inaugural addresses, and we see it exemplified in a number of verses. Just to give you a cue, a little clue, you might say, look at chapter 6, verse 22, or chapter 6, 28, or chapter 5, verse 22, chapter 5, verse 28, chapter 5, verse 32. What's something that Jesus does really lean into last week that we expect from those inaugural addresses?
The people.
To
Well,
repent.
Look at what are the first three words of 522?
Oh, 5:20.
Sorry, yeah, I said 522, 528, 532.
But
And what are the first three words?
That's what I say.
I tell you, right? So he's very much so asserting his authoritative role in his new administration, right? That is all over the place, right? It's in 39, right? It's in 34. You've heard this, right? But I say. So it really is an assertion of his personal authority in this kingdom that he is inaugurating. But the irony, though, here is that Jesus doesn't assert his authority for his own sake, but to the glory of
God the Father.
exactly. It's always to the glory of the Father, right? You can look at, for example, 5:48. You therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, right? Everything that he's teaching is to help God's kingdom conform to the image of God, to the image of the Father, right? So this week, he's going to focus on authentic piety. In other words, what his kingdom and what people who are subjects of his kingdom should look like, and he's going to contrast that with inauthentic piety. It's still a kind of piety, right? But it's inauthentic. It's not irreligious. It's inauthentic piety, and the word we'll hear again and again are the hypocrites, right? In Greek, it's hupokrite, and it's interesting that is the same word. It doesn't just mean hypocrite in Greek. It actually was a term that meant actor, an actor, right? Somebody who puts on a face, right? Jesus actually shows a little familiarity with the theater here. We'll take a peek at that. It says that we think of Jesus sometimes as being the small town boy, but Nazareth was a suburb of a very prosperous city, Sephora, and so he probably did have exposure to the theater. So let's look at the chart that I have for today. And I apologize, I left off the first little section of our passage, chapter 6, verses 1 through 8, right? So let's start there. Jesus does the intro there, right? Beware of practicing your piety before men in order to be seen by them, right? It's a show, right? That some people put on, right? For then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven, right? So he goes on then in verses 2 through 8. He says there are a couple of forms of inauthentic piety. What are some of his forms of inauthentic piety or hypocrisy?
Giving to the poor and telling everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Not to say anything about anybody in particular, but I'm not sure that Jesus would approve of giving millions and millions of dollars in order to have your name on a building. Right. What else does he talk about? Praying. Yeah.
Pray. They love to break down to the synagogue on the street corners.
Yeah. That you may be seen by men. And it's this at the street corners. Do you think seriously that anybody stopped and prayed on the street corner?
They do now.
Well, yeah, some do. Yeah, some do now. But was it a common enough practice that Jesus felt the need to call it out?
Looks like
It must be so back in the day.
What's going on here is Jesus' familiarity with the theater. Remember, they don't have television or radio to advertise a performance. So they would literally set up on a street corner and perform a little teaser scene from a play. It's a commercial, right? Exactly. And they do that on the street corners. And remember that plays often had religious topics in the pagan world. They often had some Greek god was going to be the savior in the story, that kind of thing. So it often included a plea to a deity. So Jesus is showing some familiarity with Greco-Roman culture here, this idea. And notice that this would have really stung, that he is comparing praying in the synagogue to what the actors do on the street corners. He's lumping that together. Okay. I should say showy prayers in the synagogue. Yeah. And then I love verse 7. What does he caution against in verse 7?
Lengthy prayers.
Talking too much.
Yeah. And Tricia, what did you say?
Lengthy prayers.
Yeah. My mother used to joke lengthy prayers. My mother used to joke about people who don't so much offer the blessing at the table as catch up on their prayer life. Don't this idea that you're putting on a show even to God, right? Who are they kidding, right? And he says empty phrases as the Gentiles do. So again, he's showing some familiarity with Gentile religious practice here. So it's really interesting. Don't be like them. Your father already knows what you need, right? Okay. So don't worry about that. What here is a consequence of this kind of hypocrisy?
Very well, since the American heard. Reward.
Exactly. You're doing your praying and your almsgiving for earthly show and to get approval by men. Fine, that's it. That's what you get, right? That's what you get. And by contrast, authentic piety would look like what?
Privacy.
Right, private generosity, private prayer, and also not wordy prayer, right? Not verbose prayer, right? The consequences, right, of authentic piety. Look at chapter 6, verse 4.
The Father who sees you in secret will reward you. There's another version that says only.
Well, it's not that he will reward you secretly, but that he sees your secret self, right? And he will reward you. And similarly in verse 6, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you, right?
What I'm asking, isn't there a version that says reward you?
Good question. I'll have to look at that. Good question. Right. And we all probably have come across contemporary examples of this, where somebody may not be a big fancy big name, but you learn quite on the sly that that person is very generous, often at their funeral, right?
Yeah.
Right. You learn about the people that person helped secretly, quietly, discreetly, right? Yeah. So we've all seen that sort of thing. So now let's move into, remember, we're skipping the Lord's Prayer for now. We're going to do it is its own thing, right? So now let's look at chapter 6, verses 16 and 17. In those verses, what does inauthentic or hypocritical piety look like?
It means acting all sick when you're fasting.
Yeah.
So they're fasting to attain they have a reward. And they have their reward. When you fast, put oil in your head and wash your face.
So again, notice Jesus' familiarity with theater. Remember the masks that we often associate with the theater, the happy face, the sad face, right? They really did use those kinds of masks in Greco-Roman theater to depict who the character was, sometimes because the same actor was playing, multiple parts. So don't put this mask on, this mask on, right? That you may be seen by men, right? And so what are the consequences of that hypocrisy?
They have their reward.
That's right. And what does authentic piety look like?
Put oil on your head and wash your face so that your fasting isn't obvious to others.
Exactly. So
To your Father in secret.
yeah. So in other words, today we would say what? We don't anoint our head and all that kind of stuff. Well, I guess some of us do use product, right? But brush your hair, shave, right? Don't look a wreck. Go ahead and look like your usual put together self, right? Yes, put together as
Robert said that.
yeah, it's my
That assumes them.
yeah, that's true. It's put together as one normally looks. Yeah, right. And the consequences of authentic piety, verse 18.
Father who sees everything will reward you.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
authentic.
Yeah, that's authentic. That's authentic, right? Um, and then let's look at 6:19 and 21. Somebody read 6:19 through 21.
Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Thank you. So what does inauthentic piety look like?
Found a bunch of houses and cars.
Yeah, yeah. Um, We-
Stuff that decays every day.
yeah, and what are the consequences of it?
Thieves are gonna come get it.
Right, and moths and rust, right? You want earthly things are going to happen to those earthly things, right? But authentic piety looks like what?
Doing things to build the kingdom.
Yeah. Laying up treasure in heaven, right? Investing in the kingdom, exactly. And the consequences of that,
The consequence of which one?
of authentic piety here. Look at 21.
You look at you get a connection.
Yes,
You get a connection. So wherever you put your treasure, you get connected to God.
exactly. No, this is really important here. The verse does not say where your heart is, your treasure will be. It says where your treasure is, your heart will be. If you want to care about something, invest in it. And if you invest in the world, that's what you're going to care about. That's going to shape your heart. And if you invest in the kingdom, that's going to shape your heart. This is really remarkable. It's a clinical psychology here, right? You want to change the way you feel, change the way you act. Yeah. It's just like Paul talking about, whatever is noble, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, think on these things, right? It shapes your mind, it shapes your heart. It's good psychology, we would say today.
Life costs you all.
Yeah. Yes. Let there be light was great news to everybody but the darkness.
That's correct.
Can you think of a contemporary example of this at work?
The treasure part.
Yeah. Where your heart is, there your treasure will be also.
But where your treasure is, your heart will be.
So what'd you say?
Other way around.
Where
Yes, other way around.
where your treasure is, your heart will be.
Should have
Oh, I'm sorry. Coffee hasn't kicked in.
We only care because you just taught us.
Right, yeah, thank
Then-
you.
then the order matters.
It was a test. It was a test, yes, right. So can you think of a contemporary example?
I mean, yeah, this is the word that always comes to mind is maintenance. It's something, like you said, the more you buy on earth, your treasure is constantly put into maintaining that thing. Right. So even when you want to change and give more to the church and give more to other people, your whole focus is on maintaining these things. So I guess a particular example would be buying an expensive car you can't afford. The maintenance on it.
Yeah.
So you sink into that. Or spending God Because I guess treasure here can mean a bunch of different things. I don't think it just has to be money.
Right.
It could also be time.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time online, you start to worry about all the stuff that's there versus, but on the authentic side though, when you are able to change the way you act, sit down and give the minutes and moments to your word, that's the stuff you start thinking on. Your brain starts to shift.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
And of course, there's a tug of war at all times, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
you have to put your money in these places. You got to maintain stuff. It just can't get away from it.
Yeah. That's great. Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's look at the next little couplet, 22 and 23. Somebody read that for us.
The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. So if the light within you is darkness, how deep is the darkness?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. He's a lot of metaphor here, right? Right. So what does inauthentic piety look like here?
Wearing shades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Run with that. How is that a metaphor for what you're saying? Yeah. A modern metaphor for what Jesus is saying.
So like you consistently trying to cover up what the inside actually looks like.
Okay.
Right. So going back to the fasting thing, I want to look a certain way because I want this type of attention. But if if my lamp is dark on my eyes, or what my vision of the world is, or how I see myself, or how I see God, or how I see a regular tree, if I shade myself, then I don't have to worry about being judged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I open mine, take my shades off, and then I actually have the ability to be held accountable and grow.
I love it. I love it. Notice too, the eye is the what of the body?
Lamp.
The window.
Well, he says the lamp, right?
Okay.
Ancients believed that the way we saw was that light came out of our eyes.
I got that way right.
Yeah. So if the lamp is sound, your whole body's full of light, right? You can see. You can see, right? Light's coming out, light's coming in. You can see. Remember that eye diseases were extraordinarily common in antiquity, right? Extraordinarily common. So if you can't see, what does that do to the rest of your body? Your whole
Still the
body
darkness.
is in darkness, right? And Kathy, your metaphor of the window is very good, right? Because if the window's shut, well, that's it, right? The shades are drawn. You put on your sunglasses, no light comes in, right? The whole body is in darkness. So if the way that you see the world is shaded, is diseased, is blinded, that has consequences, not just for your eye, but for your whole self, right? The whole
Yes.
self.
I was thinking with light and darkness, perhaps he was referring to your attitude.
Sure.
That if you go around, everybody has troubles. Everybody's dealing with something. Everybody. And so your demeanor, your attitude can be like, oh, wow, we're at church, or we're having this great Sunday school class, or oh God, it was so cold, I just couldn't make it. Well, it's a lot of it's attitude and your
Absolutely.
intention.
Absolutely. This is a really rich metaphor that Jesus uses here, right? it's about how you're seeing the world. And yes, that can be your attitude. It can be, because we're going to move into talking about judgmentalism.
I was just
Right.
gonna say that, your willingness to change perspective.
Right. It's how you see the world affects everything about you.
Yeah.
That again, that gets back to what he's just talked about. You know, where your treasure is, your heart will be, right? And how you see things is gonna affect everything. He's talking about little things that affect your whole self, right? Let's look at let's see. We skip Mammon. We'll do Mammon in a couple minutes. But let's go to 25. Or excuse me. Sorry. Go to chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Right? And we just sort of done a lead into that. I'll read that for it. Chapter 7, verse 1 through 5. Judge not, that you not be judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take this speck out of your eye, when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye. Then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So he's building on that sight metaphor that he started, right? So inauthentic piety, hypocrisy, what does it look like?
Judgment.
Right, nitpicking.
Yeah.
Nitpicking. And the consequences of it.
You don't see clearly.
You
Yes,
don't.
you'll be judged just like you judge them.
Yes, I firmly believe we will all get to heaven, stand before the throne of grace, and the Lord will say, let's see, one time you fussed at somebody because they did this. And let's see, on November 12th, 1972, you did, yeah, I fully believe it. Yeah, you will be judged, absolutely. And by contrast, what does authentic piety look like?
Working on yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Log out of your own eye. And it's a log, right? It's not a speck, it's a log. So some of that, I'm reminded of the 12 steps, right? In Alcoholics Anonymous, right? That brutal, was it step 4? Is the brutal moral self-assessment. That acknowledgement, I got logs, right?
So we all have laws.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do we hold people accountable for their actions? That's a real question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question.
Without it being
Right.
judging.
So, and that I think it has to do with exactly the language you use is accountability. That's about the other person. That's about, we need to address something in you for your sake. That doesn't include, and I'm better than you are because,
Yes.
right? Right. That's a great question. And now the consequences of authentic piety. That's all right. What are the consequences of authentic piety?
I
You'll
think,
see clearly.
and
Yes.
you can help others.
And you can help others.
Yeah.
You don't have a log in your eye. Right? What a great, ridiculous image, right? I mean, that's like straight out of the editorial page, right? The log coming out of somebody's eye. Exactly. This can get dicey to you. Can you come up with a contemporary example?
Well, some of our leaders appear to be critical of others for things they themselves do.
Sure.
Pardon me?
Sure. Yeah.
And, actually, I can see that about me sometimes.
Harder, yeah. Let's stick closer to home. What are things we do?
Well, sometimes, sometimes I may like be hard on my friends about their health choices when I eat donuts too on Sunday.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. The donut principle. Yeah.
You're saying we have to
No, I-
get rid of the box of donuts.
Somebody else not to eat a donut hole. Right. Um, uh, Freud, Freud had some good ideas and some bad ideas.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one place where Freud really, I think, hit the nail on the head. He said, if you find yourself criticizing something, stop and take a look at yourself.
Mhm.
Because you may actually be talking about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? That if you catch yourself saying, that is so, whatever it is, stop. Take a look at yourself. Because he said, most of us are always talking about ourselves. And it's a pretty hard thing to address. But I think he hit the mark there. Let's look at 7:15 through 20. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorns or figs from thistles? So every sound tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears evil fruit. A sound tree cannot bear evil fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will know them by their fruits. So what does hypocrisy or inauthentic piety look like?
looks like no fruit.
Yeah,
Where did Shakespeare say, man can smile and smile?
and play the villain. Yes, from Othello. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Inauthentic piety looks like thorns and thistles. It does not look like figs and grapes, which are tasty, right? It's bad fruit is yielded from inauthentic piety, right? And notice that that marvelous metaphor that is unique to Jesus: sheep's clothing. Sheep's clothing. Again, that may be familiarity with the theater. One way to depict that a character is playing a wild animal would be you put a skin with the head on that animal, but inside they're ravenous wolves, right? So by contrast, right, authentic piety bears what?
Good fruit.
Good fruit.
Fruit.
And I think we can all think about contemporary examples, right? If someone is a false prophet, what does that end up doing to their congregation?
False.
It's pretty destructive, right?
Poisons it.
Yeah, exactly. And what does good leadership yield? Right, growth, good fruit, right?
It's healing in its effect also.
Yeah,
It's like when you really have serious troubles and people come to try to help you and lift you up and like that. I'm thinking of Pauline right now and everything she and Cherian are going through and the number of emails of concern. And I mean, it lifts my spirits that so many people care about her. And, you've put stuff on email, keeping us up to date. Dee has, Annie Gillespie has. So many people are concerned and are showing their concern, wanting to help and wanting to do something to lift them up.
and praying for them
Absolutely.
and yeah, and she is seeing fruit of that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Before we move on, I'd like to revisit, some of this we've been talking about, practicing piety and secret,
Yeah.
secret. And yet, earlier he did say, "You're the light of the world."
Yeah.
He goes on to say, "Let your light so shine before men
Yeah.
that they may see your good works and give glory
Yeah.
to your Father in heaven." So obviously he wasn't saying, well, don't ever do something good for somebody else, and where people can find out about it. And I remember my mother, years ago, there was a family in our hometown. They're really good people, and they're always helping people. But they just took this always, I don't know how mother found out about it, but it was always in secret. And she was just commenting one time to me that she wished they would do more of it. It's encouraging to us when we see someone doing good, and oh, I could be doing that too. And that's a good thing, or oh, that shows that God is at work in their life. So obviously there's a place. So would you please reconcile?
There's a place for showing it, you mean?
For letting it be seen.
Letting it be
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah. No, thank
My
you.
mother was just saying she felt it was
Yeah.
an encouragement
Right.
to others. If
Right.
we knew more of what they were doing, it would help us see. That's a good thing. We could do that too.
And yeah, thank you for pointing out that
And even
that
mother's
tension.
Sunday school class, that was their thing.
that was that. Yep. 5:16. I think Jesus is getting at intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, intent.
Yeah, intent and goal. Why do you do what you do? Piety is not bad. It's inauthentic piety. It's good deeds for the show of good deeds. Yeah. Where are you looking for your reward here? And yeah. I think that's a very good point. Because yes, we are supposed to bear witness with our deeds, but we're not supposed to be doing this for our reward. Because Jesus, obviously, people saw Jesus' miracles. They saw him, his preaching. They saw who he was, what he did, but it was always to the glory of the Father. Right. Let's look at 7:21 through 23. This is a scary little couplet here. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you evildoers. And of course, he's going to have a parable later in Matthew about this. So inauthentic piety, right, can look a lot like ministry. Exactly. There you go. Exactly. Because God knows us in secret. God knows why we're doing what we're doing. And it can even look successful, right? Cast out demons. Did it? Built a hospital. Did it? Okay. But the question is, what's going on in your heart? Okay. And then this beautiful section, 7:24 to 20. Somebody read that for us. This is a passage that people point to where Jesus seems to be talking from the shore of the Sea of Galilee, talking about places that you can see from the shore of the Sea of Galilee. So somebody read verses 24 through 27.
Okay, I will. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash.
Thank you. So what does false piety, what does hypocrisy look like?
Building your house on sand.
Yeah, exactly.
Stability versus instability.
Yeah, what's able to withstand. And notice that the houses may look exactly the same. It's the foundation
Foundation.
that's the question. And the house that's built on sand will fall. When the storms come, the house built on rock will stand because it's built on a rock. In the midst of this, Jesus includes a section on money and on anxiety, starting in 6:24. Talks about you can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and mammon, right? Because you'll either be devoted to one and despise the other, or despise one and be devoted to the other, right? And then he moves into verse 25. What's the first word of verse 25?
Therefore.
Therefore, right? It's one of those important words, right? So it tells us that whatever is about to come is built on the truth of what he just said, right? Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life. What does serving two gods have to do with being anxious?
Well, every time you're split, you're anxious because you don't have a single-minded focus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that already causes anxiety because
Absolutely.
you're trying to do two things at once.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which one do I serve? What do I do? I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta pick up the kids and be at work at the same time. Right? Right? And notice that this builds on what he had just been talking about where you lay up your treasure. About your eye. How is it that you see the world? He's trying to focus us. You need that single-minded devotion to God and not to the things of this world, or you're always going to be anxious, right? Again, this is really great clinical psychology, right? In 7:1, right, Jesus enjoins us not to do what? To judge, right? And what is judgmentalism? How does that relate to anxiety?
Worry. You're worried about somebody else.
So, because what you're really worried about is yourself, right? If you're busy being judgmental, it's because you don't feel secure in who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like I gotta nitpick somebody else to justify my own self, right? And again, that relates to not having a single-minded devotion to God and not having trust in God. I have to prove myself. That leads to judgmentalism. I trust God to take care of me, to define my worth, to shape who I am. If I do that, I'm not going to have to feel anxious, and I'm not going to have to feel like I need to point the finger at other people. Right. So what is it more broadly that the person who is judgmental, there's something fundamental they don't understand. Jesus ties this in chapter 7, verse 11. Somebody read that.
If then you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him?
Thank you. So somebody who's judgmental, somebody who's anxious, does not understand that God is willing and ready and able to give whenever we ask. Notice he here comes back to authentic prayer. Right? Authentic prayer approaches God with trust and just honest request. Right? So then what connects verse 11 there that Kathy just read for us to verse 12? Somebody read verse 12, chapter 7, verse 12.
Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. For this is the law of the prophets.
Thank you. How do verse 11 and 12 connect? Jesus says they do, right? He starts it with, so, whatever you wish.
Be like God.
Yeah, be like God. Right. God gives to those who ask him, right? So you too should be generous in giving to others. This is the law and the prophets. And this whole sermon has been a commentary on that principle. The graciousness. Go ahead.
God gives to the just and the unjust. I think about
Absolutely.
that a lot. You know, people that maybe aren't doing what God would have them do. I mean, the rain still falls on them. They still enjoy the sunshine and things, and hopefully good health.
Yeah. And indeed, is anyone just?
No, none of us,
Right.
not one, but
Right.
Jesus.
Right. So God, all the rain that God gives is to the unjust. All the sunshine that God gives is to the unjust. All the forgiveness and the grace, by definition, is to the unjust, is to those who do not deserve it, which is all of us everywhere. And that realization is what's supposed to shape our behavior to everyone else.
Good point.
And that's what Jesus is elaborating on through this whole sermon. Is the graciousness of God should define who we are, and it defines what his kingdom is. Any last comments before we go to worship? Next week we turn our attention to the Lord's Prayer. So,
The authentic